Hey guys, I assume if you're like me during this time where we have to be inside for an extended amount of time, you might be going through your freezer finding old packs of deer meat. And so what I'm trying to do is make some bologna, something we do each year. And I figured I'd throw together a quick video on a great recipe that I've had for a long time that works really, really well. Show you how to make that up really quick. So, of course, you need some ground meat. So I already have some ground burger here. This is actually 2 pounds of burger. At the same time, as I run through the supplies that you'll need, you're going to need some type of casing. So I use Cabela's or Bass Pro or Lem. Sometimes I make a nice big order from Lem. It works really well. But basically, these hold about 2.5 pounds per roll. So you get those going in a nice warm soak of water. I have these here actually down inside some warm water in a bowl in the sink. Just go ahead and marinate those for about 30 minutes. And then the other supplies that you need are pretty simple. You got to find, this stuff's a little bit harder to find. It's called Morton's Tender Quick Salt. You get a pretty big bag of it. These last a long time if you're making jerky or you're making bologna. It doesn't really matter. It lasts a good long time. It's a 2-pound bag. So get yourself some of that. You need a pretty good sized thing of mustard seeds. So I ordered them. I think these were from Lem. I placed an order. LEM, pretty good place. Sometimes Bass Pro or Cabela's, you can get them as well. So you need those. You need, this is quite messy, liquid smoke. Again, this is from Lem, LEM. You can see I've had this for a while. It's made a lot of jerky. It's made a lot of bologna, etc. So this is something else that you're going to need. You're going to need just some good old garlic powder, which is pretty simple. You can find at the store. And you're going to need some black peppercorns, which I seem to have placed those somewhere over here. Again, from Lem, whole black peppercorns. Pretty simple. So basically, per pound of meat, you take, and you're going to need a measuring cup and a tablespoon and a teaspoon measure. That's it. It's pretty simple. So basically, per 1 pound of ground meat, this is what it calls for. And I'll post this recipe here down below. But 1 pound of venison to 2 heaping teaspoons of the Tender Quick salt. So this gets 2 of these. Sprinkle that in there. That's 2 per pound. Now remember, I got 2 pounds of meat in there. So I'll put 2 more in there. Okay, that takes care of the salt. Then you need 1 tablespoon of mustard seeds per pound again. So there's 1. And we have 2 pounds of meat in there, so again, we'll put 2 in there. All right, there's your mustard seeds. And then you need a teaspoon of garlic powder. So we're gonna put 2 of these in, since we have 2 pounds. All right. And then 1 teaspoon of black peppercorns. So again, these are whole. Sometimes I get them and grind them up. It is nicer when they're ground, but it takes a lot more time unless you buy a dispenser that you can grind them up. If you put them in whole, they really cook down pretty good. So 2 tablespoons of these. Okay, so then we got our black peppercorns in there. And half a teaspoon of liquid smoke. So again, this is 2 pounds of meat, so we're gonna add 1 teaspoon. The stuff is really strong, so don't go too heavy on it. Okay, and when you're done, it should look like this down in there. You can see all these mix. And we gotta basically, with our hands, take this and mix it all up. See if I can get a pretty good shot down in here. It gets pretty goopy. You want it to be a little bit pasty. The other thing that I find is if you add 1/4 cup of cold water or even ice water to the meat, it also helps. So once you start mixing it, I'll take a little bit of cold water here. I'm looking to add 1/2 cup. Dump that in there. That allows all the chemicals to get, the ingredients to get a little bit more evenly distributed. It is cold on the hand. And you can kind of see ingredients that get stuck on the side. Stainless steel bowl is really good to use for this. You don't want to let your meat sit in this, by the way. So as soon as we're done mixing this up, we're going to put it into the actual tubes. Each casing that I bought holds about 2.5 pounds. So every 5 pounds of meat, you should get 2 great big size 20-inch sticks, I believe is the size of those. So this is kind of what it should look like when it's kind of mixed up. You see some of the mustard seeds, you see some of the black peppercorns, the garlic powder is all kind of mixed in. And it's a little bit tacky, not loose by any means. It should kind of stay together. As you can see, it's a little bit, not pasty, but kind of clumpy. That's the consistency that you're looking for. We're gonna go ahead and mix up a bunch more, and then we'll show you how to stuff the casings. Okay, so now we have probably about 7 or 8 pounds of bologna ready to go. It's been sitting. We go ahead and we pull out our casing. Make sure you drain the water out of these. They come with one end tied. And the best way to do this is with a spoon if you want, or you can just grab some meat, kind of hold it open. And I generally start to take like little balls or tubes almost, and just let them slide right on down in the casing. A little at a time. And after you do a couple of handfuls, kind of grab it. You want to work the air out so that you get it down here. These tubes are pretty large. So as you're squeezing the air out, you can see that's about the size that they expand to. And that's about how much you want to squish it down. And then you just keep stuffing the tube until you get close to the end. Some people tie the other end. I actually buy hog rings, and I got a pair of hog pliers which work really good. Hog ring pliers, and they work the best to kind of tie these things off. And then once you get these things filled, again, we're going to fill a couple of them here to cook them, and you get them tied off. And the nicer you squish this down and get the air out, you can see the nicer the tube starts to form a nice thick sized tube of bologna like you'd buy at the store if it was Pepperidge Farm or whatever. It's just a really good way to use up you know, some ground meat that you have. Even if it's a couple of seasons old, it still works really good. I've done it multiple times. As long as the meat's not freezer burn, or you vacuum seal it. And once these are done and they've cooked in the oven, and they slow cook, I think it's 200 degrees for 3 hours and a quarter, or 3 hours and 20 minutes, something like that. Stick the thermometer in there just to make sure that they're the right temperature. And then they're good to go. And they, like I said, I freeze them. Put them in the freezer. These casings work really good, and you'll have them they'll last a couple of years in the freezer. You can also buy a smaller size mahogany casing, which these are mahogany, by the way, and I think that they just work a little better. They are not edible, just so we're clear. You do not eat these casings. I would definitely not do that. Even the casings that are edible, I've just never been a big fan of. I've made sausage and stuff before. I always cut the casing off even if it's edible. It's just your own personal preference. But you can see now we're starting to get to the top of the tube. Okay? So just kind of smash it down with your fingers. Again, the best way is to get a really good tight twist on it at the top. Get as much of that air out as possible. And you can see that's a pretty good sized stick of bologna. So once you get this good and tight, getting all the air out, if you want to put a little more meat in there, you can. I'd say this one can take maybe another little spoonful, another little pinch. And then we're going to go ahead and seal this off with a hog ring and the hog pliers so that it's done. And then they can go straight into the oven. It's probably good to let them sit. Sometimes I let them sit maybe in the fridge overnight for 24 hours just to let the seasoning and the flavor get into the meat really good. But this makes a really good tasting bologna. A lot of people like it. I make it each year. It's always a big hit. And it's really not hard. It's not a lot of ingredients. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. But then kind of mess around with this. We will get the hog pliers real quick. And a hog ring. Again, you can buy a big pack of hog rings and get it like Tractor Supply. They look like this. Get different sizes. These are a little small probably for this size, so this might be a little bit of a struggle, but we'll try it nonetheless because I don't like to tie strings on them. It takes a lot of time. This will fight you a little bit though, but at any rate, get a good pinch and a really good twist on it. You want that to be as narrow as you can. Just twist and twist and twist and twist it. And then get a hold of your hog ring. And again, there's larger ones and smaller ones. These are smaller, so I would not advise going with these. They're a little tighter to fit on here. But once you get the hog ring over the casing, they just fit down in the plier. Slide it down really good and tight. Then you grab your pliers here. Then pinch off the hog ring nice and tight. What that does is make a good seal with the hog ring. You can see keeps all your meat intact. You can stick this right in the oven, and like I said, 3 hours 15, 3 hours 20 minutes, 200 degrees, and it'll be done. Okay guys, so it's been 24 hours. You can refrigerate your deer bologna in the refrigerator. You can do it longer than that, maybe 24, 48 hours, whatever, but when they're said and done, they should come out like this. We got all these tubes ready to go into the oven, so they're nice and cool to temperature. We take a drip tray, so I've just basically used a cookie sheet here, lined it with some aluminum foil. That way it catches the drips. You want to poke some holes along the bottoms of the actual tubes of bologna, and then you put them in on the rack for 3 hours and 15 minutes at 200 degrees. And I also use a thermometer that I stick up inside the tube like so, and that gives me a reading on my timer sitting outside. This will tell me when 3 hours and 20 minutes is up, as well as when they hit 165 degrees. That's pretty much it. Put the tubes up on the rack so that they drip down onto the cookie sheet, and cleanup's easier with the aluminum foil. So we're going to go ahead and put these in real quick, and then I'll show you what finished product looks like in a second. Okay guys, so as I mentioned, poke some holes for drain in the bottom, just like this. I just use my temperature needle for this. I don't know, maybe every couple inches just to let the juices drain out. They definitely get pretty juicy. And then as mentioned, you take your thermometer needle and put it inside. I generally go with the middle tube as far as it'll go. Okay, 200 degrees. Move them over here to the oven for a second. And then you just stick them in the top rack. Of course, with the holes down so that they can let the juice come out. Turn it around so your thermometer gauge is sticking out of the oven, obviously. For a full tube here. Our drip tray goes in. Make sure that's good in center. That's pretty much it. Move this up. I will set my timer. You can see here when this comes on, set it for 3 hours, 20 minutes. And I will set the temperature. Normally it gets around 165. And the time is really painfully slow. Jeez. Okay, we will get there at some point. All right, start. That will sit there. And the last thing I wanted to show you is, here's what I do with mine when it's all said and done. I vacuum seal it, that way it stays together. I generally cut these rolls in half. These just came out of the freezer for us to use here for the next couple of days. This is the consistency it should be. You just cut a slice, throw away the outer wrapper. It still has a little bit of ice on it, but tastes really good. Good on a sandwich, a little bit of cheese and ketchup. Good with crackers. Good just to throw in a backpack. I keep mine refrigerated. They say that you don't have to do that. I've never done that because it really is summer sausage, so it can sit on the counter. I don't know that I would recommend you doing that. That's it. 3 hours, 20 minutes later, take it out, let it cool down, pat it dry with some paper towels, let it get to room temperature, and then vacuum seal it, wrap it in aluminum around the outside of the casing, put it in the freezer is one way to do it. Vacuum sealing keeps it the most fresh though. And again, by adding that little bit of half a cup of water per pound, it makes it nice and moist like this. So enjoy. I will post the recipe and into the actual end of the video. Thanks again.